Okay. What did we talk about last time? What did we talk about last time? What did we talk about last time? Huh? Yeah, from the booklet? Good job.
Oh, I remember. We did some examples of like people who changed after the Holy Spirit came.
Okay, so they got the blessing and the skills of leadership after. Okay, what else we talked about last time?
And we talked about like who you need to serve first. So
Yes.
you need to serve yourself first.
Yes.
And then serve family before serving like outside of family, like before going out and serving.
Yep.
And then serving people who are in the faith but they don't believe stuff.
Sure.
And then serving outside of the faith.
Okay. So what's the verse that told us how to serve this way?
That was an important one. It was Acts something.
Yes. Yes,
right?
it's an Acts.
Respect
What's the verse? What does oneself represent in the verse, at least?
Oh, Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. So serve in Jerusalem, and then
Samaria.
Samaria, Judea.
all Judea,
Judea.
and then
Samaria.
and then Samaria, and then
Ends
Ends
of
of
the
the earth.
uttermost part of the earth. Good job. Okay. So today we're gonna talk about after this. Now we're serving, and we're gonna talk about some obstacles that we face in the service. The main one, it's one topic today, but we'll break it down. This avoiding service. Avoiding service doesn't have to be when somebody says no, I'm not serving. What do you think other forms of avoiding service? How could it come? Why would anybody avoid service? Or how would anybody avoid service?
Just like not going because you have something else that's like you think it's more important.
Okay, so priorities are not right. What else?
You could have like confidence issues, kind of like internally, like you just feel like you're not able to do it.
Okay, so feeling unworthy or unfit to serve. Great. What else?
Like laziness. Either like you like sleep in for allergy.
Okay, laziness. What else?
Going with the flow. So like if people are serving, then I'm gonna go out and serve just to look good. But
Okay.
if people are not serving, then I just don't care.
Okay, what else? Okay, so following the leadership we talked about last time, it's very important to spot how would anybody be avoiding service. It could be in forms that we may think it's true or we may think it's normal, but it is in fact a way that people could be avoiding service. The first reason, we may hear that a lot, is the desire for spiritual growth. You might run into an idea, or the devil might play you an idea in your head that you should stop service because you want to work on yourself. How often we think of that? Pretty often, right? We say, I'm not gonna serve because I want time for myself. I'm gonna step away and just work on myself. But here we have two big problems. The first problem is that the person himself thinks he can grow enough spiritually before he starts serving. Like he wants to be 100% before he starts serving. He wants to be a perfect before he starts serving. That in itself is a problem, because nobody would reach this perfect form of a servant. Therefore, that person will never serve. Do you see how the devil is playing it? He would convince you that you're not fit to serve. Like you guys said, that you need to work on yourself first. You need to be perfect first. But in reality, you will never be. Therefore, you'll never serve if you follow that route. Make sense? The second problem is if he truly knows that there is no cap for spiritual growth. So at this point, if he says, I'll work on myself first to be perfect, that means he's putting a cap on his spiritual growth. So at some point, he will stop growing and may think, okay, I'm perfect. So either somebody's trying to avoid service because there's no cap for spiritual growth, so he will never serve. Or he will stop at some point, which is in itself a problem. because there's no cap for spiritual growth. Does that make sense? So both sides of the equation is wrong.
Explain the second one again.
Sure. So if I'm trying to be perfect before I serve, I have two issues. Either first issue, I think I would be perfect one day, but I know I never will. So I'll always keep working without serving. So I will never serve. Or I will think internally, the way I think is there is a limit that I can reach to be perfect, which in itself is a problem because I think I can be perfect. Does that make sense? So either I'm avoiding it altogether because I know there is no cap for spiritual growth, or I think there is a cap which in itself is a problem because there is no actual cap. So the point when we see this, when we hear this, we need to define what's the reason behind it. Why would somebody say I need to work on myself first? If it's the no desire to serve, if it's the feeling of unworthiness or the feeling of being unfit, all these we can work on them while we're serving or as we're serving, not that we stop serving in order to work on those. Does that make sense? So, and the more we grow and the more we serve, the more we'll know how bad we are. And that's why the cap will never be reached. So if I'm growing spiritually as I'm serving, the more I serve, the more I will know how far away from that perfect example, as we said before, and God's servant, right? And the more I find that out, the more I'll serve and the more I'll grow. And it will keep going in cycle. The more I serve, the more I found how bad I am. And the more I found how bad I am, is the more I serve. So I will never stop serving. So I'll always be going up. Do you see how the circle of service versus the circle of no service? This is a saying to one of the fathers. He says, we serve ourselves and let God serve others through us. So when we serve, we said the main person to serve is who? Ourselves. And if we serve ourselves in the service, God will serve others through us. So we're not the one serving. Does that make sense? Okay. Feeling of unworthiness. We covered it a bit. But if we feeling unworthy due to our nature, this is the normal human nature. So if we say I'm unworthy to serve, we'll always be unworthy to serve. There isn't a point of time where we'll say now I'm worthy, right? Because this is our nature. This is how we are. So the feeling of worthlessness is actually a fruit of humility, which is a good thing to have. But the devil tries to take that fruit, take that humility action, and switch it to no service. If we think too much that we're unworthy, and instead of working on ourselves, we'll go the opposite direction. Does it make sense? So, and that's what God is looking for in a servant. If you remember, what's in the servant characteristics fills this gap. What's one of the servant characteristics that we did before? Talks about being humble without losing hope in service.
What's a characteristic that we talked about?
The characteristics of God's servant. Huh? Anything. Huh?
What's the question?
In the servant characteristics, in God's servant characteristic, lecture 2, we talked about the characteristics of God's servant. Now we're saying feeling unworthy is a fruit of humility. It shouldn't be a reason why we don't serve. Because one of the main characteristics of God's servant is to what? Is to be what? Humble. It's right there. So we are looking for humility. We are looking for every man to be humble. We are looking for that feeling of unworthiness. It's the matter of how you use it. Are you going to use it to push yourself closer, or are you going to use it to push yourself further away from God? Make sense? So, how God looks at it, when Peter felt unworthy, when Jesus was on his boat, what did Peter do?
So depart from me.
He told him, move away.
Yeah.
Is that the right way to do it if I'm feeling unworthy? What did Jesus tell him?
I'll make you a fisher of men.
Exactly. He pulled him even closer. First, he was just a guy that follows Jesus, and Jesus uses his boat, uses his fishing skills, all that. The minute he starts to feel unworthy, is the minute that God pulled him closer. So it should be a more reason to serve than to push God away because we're unworthy. Okay? How else could we be unworthy? Unworthy due to pettiness. What's unworthy due to pettiness? What does that say? What does that tell you? What's pettiness? When someone is being petty.
It's like annoying. Like I can describe it. I don't know the exact definition.
Sure, describe it.
Just annoying. Just kind of just doing stuff, just little stuff that's just like.
Always on the surface. He doesn't have any deep meanings to what he does, right? He does just do meaningless stuff. So if I'm feeling unworthy just because my spiritual life is meaningless, this is not a reason to push God away. This is more reason why I need to work on serving, work on myself in the service. So any meaningless actions I do, any meaningless spiritual acts that I do becomes meaningful, and instead of the other way around. Because if I have a meaningless spiritual life and I'm always in the service, no deep connections with God, no deep connections in my prayer, no deep connections in my Bible study, and I push God away, what does that do?
It pushes me further away from.
Pushes me further. It makes me work. It makes my life even more and more meaningless. Okay? The balance of worthiness versus blessing. We talked about this, that some skills, some characteristics, you get it as a blessing when you serve. So when you feel unworthy, God gives you that blessing of feeling, no, you can serve. No, I want to pull you closer to me. I want to make you a fisher of men. I want to use you in the service. Only when you're feeling unworthy. But when somebody feels that he's entitled, later on when Peter, Jacob, and John were arguing who would be closer to God in heaven, what did Jesus tell them?
The last will be first.
The first will be last. If you ask to be the closest, you'll be the furthest away. And if you ask to be the furthest, you'll be the closest. And before he explains this, he pretty much told them, it's none of your business. It's not for you to decide. It's not for you to know who will sit on the right, who will sit on the left. It's for you to serve and ask to be the furthest so you can be the first. So that balance is between two things. One, always knowing that we're unworthy. Every time we serve, we have this in the back of our mind. Everything we do, we're not supposed to be doing. Everything we do, we're not fit to be doing. Everything we do, it's not our effort and our skills that accomplishing the fruits of the service. And the other thing is getting this huge blessing from service. So if I see fruits of the service, it's a blessing, not because I'm the one doing it. Because in the back of my head, I know I'm unworthy to even serve. But God gives me that honor, that blessing. We talked about service being an honor to the people who serve. He who honors me in front of men, I will honor him in front of my Father in heaven. So that honor we get from service, it shouldn't fool us to think that we're worthy of this. We're worthy of this honor. We're worthy of this prestige and the way that people look at us as servants. Andrew Mark is late. So if we're able to accomplish that balance, we'll be serving with the mentality of, I know I'm unworthy, therefore I'll do everything in my capacity to earn that blessing. Versus if I serve with the mentality of being worthy, then I'm entitled, then I'll never even do the 100% that I'm supposed to do. Does it make sense with the difference? Okay. All right. Another problem of avoiding service, or another reason of why somebody would avoid service. Family hindrance. How many times we run into this? Family in the way. Often, not often, never, always. We run into it. We run into family issues. We run into family times conflicting. We run into a family, not necessarily that closer family, father, mother, but friends, work. All that is could be considered family hindrance. But let's see what Jesus said about this. He who loves a father or a mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. So how can we balance this, between this and serving our family that we talked about last week? We have to serve ourselves and our family before we serve God's people. How can we balance between this and not making family a hindrance to the service? It's very simple. Every time that family gets in the way, ask yourself this. Would me being there with them serve them pastorally, give them or strengthen the bonds between us? Is it something that I have to do, or is it just a fun activity that I may not have to do? A lot of times we use family as an excuse if it's not an actual thing we have to go through. We're not saying don't go to a wedding, don't go to a funeral, don't go to a big family gathering. But most of the time, we choose when family want to be a reason to avoid service and when family would be, or when service would be a reason to avoid family. Right? Sometimes we go to the family and say, sorry, I have service, can't come to this. And some other time, sorry, Abuna, I have family thing, can't come. At this time, it's a choice. So we make the choice. We set the priorities. So here God says, it's very clear. If you love family more than Him, you're not worthy of Him. But He didn't say neglect family. He didn't say don't support, don't serve your family. He didn't say this. He said don't love family more than me. Don't give family 100% of time and service 0. Or don't pick and choose based on your preference. I feel like doing this service, so I'll use family, or I'll use service as an excuse not to be in family. Or I don't like this gathering of family, I don't like going to my uncle, then every time we're going there, I'll say I have service. Right? For example, I'll tell you why God said he loves father or mother more than me don't deserve it. When two people are coming to a marriage decision, or they want to be engaged, or they are looking to set up a life together, the first question the priests ask, would that person pull you closer to him or pull you away from him? From God. First question you need to ask. You all are adults and thinking of relationships, I'm sure. The main question, would that person pull you closer to God or pull you away from God? If they pull you away from God, then you love them more than God. If they pull you closer, then you love God and bring them with you. Or they love God and bring you with them. Does it make sense? So as a whole family, as a couple, as a family in planning, you're pulling yourself towards God. You're putting God first before you even your relationship. A lot of times we see issues between two people, married, engaged, in a relationship, and the deciding factor is this right to God or not in that problem. One person wants to do what's right according to God's standard, and the other person don't. He wants to do what the standard of the society says. He wants to do what's right in their eyes, regardless of what God thinks. So this issue, if we think that we want to pull ourselves closer to God, will not happen. Right? So when family gets in the way of service, this is not a good way to put God first. When a wife or a friend or a cousin, every time we have service, no, don't go to service and let's do something else, then this should not be an excuse to avoid service. Make sense? So as a leader, following last lecture, as a leader, we can spot how often that family excuse is being used. Is it being honestly and faithfully, this is actually what's happening, or just being an excuse to avoid service? Make sense? Parents. So we talked about spouses and spouses to be. Parents. Can parents be picked before service, or service be picked before parents?
Service. Service.
If you're neglecting your family, then you're not in the
Serving.
right ballpark.
Okay.
So then, I would say like it really depends, because when we said we have to serve ourselves,
Yes.
and then our family,
Mhm.
and then the body,
Yep.
and then unbelievers, and
Sure.
like that. Like I guess it really just depends on the context. I would
Okay.
say. So
Okay. So which one comes first?
I think
Parents.
this is my parents.
Okay.
This is my family.
Okay.
Before I can come here, I
Right.
have to take care of my family.
When would God come before parents? Or when would we choose service and God before we choose parents?
You don't have any.
Huh?
They're gone.
What?
He's saying that you don't have any parents. Yeah.
Okay.
And what's your siblings?
I would say we would choose God over our parents in all the time. All the time.
Okay.
Like,
So if let me make that question easier. So or I'll answer it. But parents, yes, we should serve ourselves, our parents, the believers, and then to the uttermost part of the earth. But what if serving our family pull us away from God?
Then it's not
So then you probably wouldn't want to be in that situation as much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a balance between serving and serve ourselves. Because remember, ourselves first, and then family, and then the believers. So if the only time we would put God first, or we would put service first, not God first, we always put God first. But every time we put service before family is when the family is pulling away from the service. When family is trying to push away. It sounds strange, but it happens. Example. Saint Damiana. What did she do when her father decided to not go the right direction? Do you guys know the story of Saint Damiana?
Yeah.
Yeah? She said, I'm not denying Christ. And her father said that. But with the pressure of the emperor or the governor, he denied. What did she do?
She went after him. Didn't she tell him?
Yes, she did. She told him exactly, from this point, you're not even my father. That's how far she pushed him away, because she chooses God first. So the only time we would choose service or we would push family is when the family is pushing us away from God. So as long as they're not pulling in the same direction we're pulling, then this is the time to make a decision. Okay. So it's very much a balance between honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land of the Lord our God is giving you, and he who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. This is the balance we're trying to make between those two things. How can we honor them without loving them more than God? Every situation, you think, would this mean that I love them more than I love God and I love to serve? Or would this be honoring them and giving them what the right thing to do? So I can't not see them for weeks because I'm serving. But I can't see them 5 days a week and say I don't have time to serve. Make sense? Okay.
I think of when even Saint Mary, when Christ was in the temple serving, right? When he was 12,
Yes.
she was worried for him.
Yeah. I was giving that example. So Saint Mary, when Christ was in the temple at 12, what did he tell her? They were looking for him and they were like, where were you? We've been looking for you all day. He told her, don't you know I have to serve, I have to be in my Father's house? This is where I am. This is where I belong. This is my main thing. And then I serve outside. Couple stories of the other people that put God before parents. Abu Nafataus, if you know the story. How many times did he go to the monastery and his father pulled him back? Multiple times. But at this point, why was the father pulling him back? Was it because he was sick, that he needed help, or he just don't want his son to leave him? He just didn't want his son to leave him. So is this a person that's pulling you away from God or pushing you more towards God? Away. And what happened? At the end, he picked service. He told, I'm not coming back. And no matter what happened, he went to the bishop, he went to the pope. I'm not coming back. I'm choosing this. Right? Okay. Another reason to avoid service. The problems of the service itself. Sometimes we feel when we're serving that we run through so many problems that we want to step away. But ask yourself one question. Why is there a problem? Why are there problems in service?
We're sinners.
Huh?
We're sinful, that's one.
What?
We're sinful, that's
We're
one.
sinful? Okay.
So,
You
can deal
Are you
with
saying
one.
we're not sinful yet? Like,
We are, but it's not why we have problems in service. Why do we have problems in service?
Pride.
It's a test.
Huh?
Test.
What?
Test is from.
It's a test, okay? So we're in front of two answers, to stick around or to leave. Which one is a pass, which one is a fail?
To stick around is passive.
Stick around is passing. Leaving once you have problems, that's failing. Why else do we have problems in the service? Remember when we serve, which direction are we pulling?
Towards God, pushing towards God.
And who's fighting?
The devil.
The devil towards the other side. So if we see problems, which side is that? Which side working? The devil working. He's fighting. He's giving you problems. Are you gonna fight back or are you gonna go with him?
Fight back.
We'll see. Fight back.
Mark is not gonna fight back. Service is a struggle. It's a fight. So the fact, if we don't see problems in service, that in itself is a problem. We talked about this when we're deciding which way that we're pulling. If you don't see resistance in service, if you don't notice any struggles, any fights, then you're not fighting anybody. So you're on the wrong team. So having problems in service is a good thing to have. It's a good sign to have. You're trying to make sure not making sure there are problems in service, but seeing it and stuff happening in service that cause you problems, that cause you struggle, that cause you stress, this is a good thing to see. It's not a reason why we should avoid it. Let's look at some examples of problems in the service. This is a big one. Money. Why would money be a problem in the service? Huh?
Like, if you have to, leave work or something to go to service, then you're losing your money.
So my personal finances, okay? Why else? So we'll talk about this. Yes, that's one. How else money could be a problem in the service?
Sometimes the service itself, it's cost money too.
The service itself needs money, needs financing. So to discuss the first one, I could lose money, or I could be having an issue with the money, a problem in the service, because I'm serving, I'm missing out on work. I'm serving, I'm missing out on hours. I'm serving, I'm missing out on certain job that requires me to work 7 days a week. And I give that up to take the smaller job so I can serve at least 1 or 2 days. This is a problem, but it's a good problem to have, because we're actually offering something. We said service is you're giving something out of love. You're giving God something back to the honor that He gives you. But if you don't have something that you're giving back, if you're not sacrificing anything, what does the service become?
A hobby.
A hobby. It's something I do when I have time. I'm not tired, I'm not stressed, I'm not struggling, I'm not giving up anything. I do it in my spare time. It's a hobby. But if I do it from the time I need to live, from the time I need to work, from the time I need to be comfortable, then that's when it's an actual service. The second point, the money in the service itself. Sometimes we think this service doesn't have enough money to do what I want to do, so I'm not going there. It's struggle. We don't have budgets, we don't have money, we don't have abilities to do stuff, to do activities, to serve with it. One might think that's a good thing. I'm looking to serve, and there isn't resources to serve with. But who sends the resources? God. So should you go towards Him or away from Him?
Towards it.
Same thing. Does it make sense? So if I don't see resources, if I don't see budgets, if I don't see money in the service, is there a reason to step away or a reason to serve more?
Serve more.
Right? The service will bring what it needs. Ask any servant that's been doing it for a while. So many situations that happen with every single person. We want something for the service. We don't know where to get it from. We don't know how to get it. We don't know how to plan it. All of a sudden, it's there. A lot of miracles happen. There was a story once with Pope Shenouda in Saint Bishoy's monastery. Back in the day, they had a big project to build the buildings for the monks to live in. And they needed exactly 500 tons of cement, a certain brand. They can't use any brand. They said, we need this exact cement because that's the only thing that sticks in the desert from the heat. And for some reason, the monk responsible for this project forgot to put it in the budget. He put only half the amount. So they got half the amount. There's no budget for anything else. The people started working, all of a sudden they're out of cement. And Pope Shenouda was there, visiting the monastery. So the bishop of the monastery comes to Pope Shenouda and he tells them, we don't have money. We don't have cement, we don't have money. The building is halfway full, halfway there. What do we do? So Pope Shenouda starts asking, why did we come to this problem? How did we come to this problem? Where was the problem from? And he found that it was just an honest mistake. The monk forgot. It's people that want to serve, they want to build. They don't have resources. And Pope Shenouda told him, who are you building for? God and Saint Bishoy, for the monks to live in. He said, okay, they will take care of it. If we're building it for them, they know how to get that money in. 20 minutes later, true story, 20 minutes later, a guy knocks on the monastery. He said, I want to meet the bishop. He goes to meet the bishop, and the Pope is in his cell. He goes to meet the bishop, and he tells them, I came from this certain company, this certain businessman who wanted to donate 500 tons of cement, this brand, to the monastery. I don't know if you guys need it or no, but you can keep it. If you don't need it now, you'll need it later. But here's 500 tons. And he brought the trucks. Like the cement was there. It's not like that I will bring it or I will send it later. So if we're actually trying to serve, God will find a way to make you serve. Money will not be a problem. Not in service and not in your personal life. Believe me, every time you give up something for God, every time you're financially uncomfortable for God, every time you give up rest and comfort in your life for God, He will give you 10 times more. A different story where a guy, he applied for a job and it was a job of his dream. And he goes to the interview, he passes. They told him, you'll get the offer. Our only condition is you're working Saturday and Sunday. And he was one of the big servants at church. It was actually a true story in Egypt. And he told them no. And they said, what do you mean no? You're the one picked out of 50 candidates. What do you mean no? He told them no. Sunday I have church. And that's the only day I attend church. And Saturday I have service. I'll work as long as it's not Saturday and Sunday. They told him this is the only one available. They're like, okay, no, not doing it. And he gave it up. And he was actually struggling without a job, not that he had a different job. So he chose to stay unemployed, to not give up service. On the way back, taking an Uber, the guy is chatting with him. The driver's brother owns the company that's competitive to the one he interviewed for. And the driver was Christian. And he told him, I can ask. I don't know if I'll get anything, but I'll ask if they have a job for you. Few days go by and a week goes by, and he gets a phone call with an interview for the competitive company with a time and a half salary to the original one. This stuff don't happen easily. This stuff don't happen just to anybody. If you choose God, if you choose to do the right thing, if you choose not to leave Him, if you don't love father, mother, brother, sister, son, money, comfort in life more than Him, He will reward you. He will give you what you need. The verse says He gives the birds in the sky what they need. He gives all the creatures what they need to survive. What about us, His children? Does it make sense? So money shouldn't be a problem. Not personal life or in the service. Another problem of the service is the attacks of people. Sometimes we feel attacked when we serve. Sometimes we feel stressed from other servants when we serve. Every time we do something, every time we do a service, we get blamed, or we get criticized, or we get talked down to, or we get complaints, or we get people that say, oh, you think you're a servant now because you did this. We'll have all these temptations. We'll have all these fights in the service. But again, every time you see it, it's a more reason to tell you, to convince you that you are doing the right thing. If the devil leaves you alone, then you're not fighting anybody. You're on his team. That's why he's leaving you alone. He will never leave you alone. There will always be a problem that you're facing, a stress that you're going through, a struggle, a fight, all this in the service. And lastly is what you all said in the beginning of service, those being served. A lot of times we are stressed from the actual people we're serving. From the Sunday school kids, from the people we visit, I had a servant, I heard from him in Egypt, he used to serve the people, the homeless. And one time he was too stressed and too broken from the scenes he sees, from the looks of those people, from the conditions of those people that he sees. And I remember I was standing there when he was telling Abuna, he was telling him, I can't take it anymore. These people are in so poor of condition that I can't even, it's hurting me so bad to look at it. And Abuna told him, good. That's what Christ used to see every day. So do you want to walk his path or do you want to walk a different path? Do you want to help the people or do you want to leave them where they at? Christ would walk by and sees a paralyzed man, and without the man asking, he would go and talks to him and tells him what to do and heals them at the end. So which one would you go with? Are you looking at your people that you're serving, people in need of help? So no matter what they do, they need help. They are away and you're trying to pull them closer. So if only you look at him this way, if you look at your service as you're walking Christ's path and pulling these people with you, they will never be a problem. You will be looking for more of them. Right? Because you want to walk that path more. Any questions so far? So what are the problems in service? Money? Tax of people?
Those being served.
Read the booklet, huh?
Family.
Those being served.
Notes.
Okay. Reasons to avoid service. How could anybody avoid service? How could you tell if somebody's avoiding service?
Family.
Family? Talk about family a lot. What else?
Not showing up.
Huh?
Not showing up.
Sure, but why?
Feelings of unworthiness.
Feeling of unworthiness? Huh?
Lazy.
My laziness is feeling unworthiness. Huh? The first one, what was it? Without looking at the booklet.
The desire for spiritual.
You
This
just
is my
looked at
notes.
those.
This is my notes.
The desire of spiritual growth. So desire of spiritual growth, problems of the service, feeling unworthiness, and family could stand in the way of service. Make sense? Okay. Questions? Huh? Zero? You're all convinced? So you won't tell me about these problems? You won't avoid service because of this?
We might have to review one later.
Okay. So every time you tell me family's in the way, I'll send you the slide. Yes. Oh, you have a question? Oh, okay. Okay. That's it? Okay. Thank you, guys. The homework is chapter 3 in PDF.
It says electric.
Just for future.
Where's your seat?